Okay guys, this is Mike from Boyer Bows. This is part 2 of making the Snaky Osage bow. Alright, now when I left you in part 1 we had drawn out the lines of the bow. With subsequent measurements I have redrawn the line. I cut the bow out and redrew the lines where I needed to, but basically we've got our narrow tips into our fade, into our working limb that has the nice snakiness, into the fade, then the handle, then another fade over here, another working limb, into a fade out to our narrow tips once again. Alright, so just for a quick profile, this is what the snakiness of the bow is going to look like. See if I can get it from a different angle here. So it's pretty snaky. Putting a skin on that's going to look really nice. The next step is now we need to reduce the working limbs first. Alright, that would be obviously the long rectangular. Here's the fade out. So here to down there. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I like to follow a growth ring here. I already have measured it out and drawn a line. I am going to guess, and it's only a guess, that 5/8, if I reduce this down to 5/8 where this line is here, this is the back of the bow, come up 5/8 of an inch to this line and cut the rest of the wood away, what I'm going to be left with is a bow that, although greatly reduced, may only be floor-tillered at best. It's still a way too heavy of a bow to be functional. That's my guess. 5/8 of an inch is a lot of wood, especially one that's, you know, the better part of 2 inches wide. Alright, so what I do is I come in with my tape measure and I just measure out that 5/8 of an inch, and I find the growth ring, or the growth, see here's these lines, and I find a growth ring that's at the 5/8 of an inch mark. Now because this wood isn't perfectly straight, 5/8 of an inch here is not going to be the same further down. The growth ring is 5/8 of an inch here, but it won't necessarily be over here. So what I like to do is just follow that growth, get that starting point, and then just follow the growth ring very similarly to the way I followed the grain of the wood on the back of the bow when I measured out my initial measurements. So what I'm going to have is, here's the fade. I mark where the fade is, and I just connect, following a growth ring, to one end, and then I go down to where the fade ends from the handle and connect it to that end. My next step is I'm just going to get rid of all the wood above this line, or in this case below this line. It's a lot of wood. It's going to take some time, but at least I have some kind of a guideline. Here it is again on the other limb. Some sort of a guideline to let me know how deep I need to go without going too deep. Now sometimes while I'm doing this, I'll use the draw knife, a file, a saw. I just got to get that wood out. And sometimes I'll stop a couple of growth lines short and just test the wood, see if it's bending yet. If it's already bending before I get to that line, I'll stop and I'll see how much it's bending and make a judgment call from there. But my guess is that this line is going to be, if it's bending, it'll still be over 100 pounds. That's my guess. We'll see. Alright, so when I see you again, guys, I will have cut this portion. All this wood will be gone. This will be a square here, square at the fade, and we'll move on to the next step from there. This is how to make a snaky Osage bow, or at least my way to make a snaky Osage bow. Part 2. I'm Mike from Boyer Bows, and we'll talk to you guys soon.